Doved beef. Take 4 or 5 pounds of the part of the buttock of beef that has fat at the top, some calls it the steak. Stick 10 cloves all over, and set it into the oven in a stew-pot, with 1/4 pound of butter, and half a pint of water. Then take 2 pounds of the buttock of beef, and fry it in thin slices with butter in a stewpan brown. Then add to it 3 quarts of water. Let it stew over the stove. Then take a pound of carrots, boil and cut them in dices, and a pound of turnips, half boil them, and cut one of them in the form of carved sippets, and lay round the dish. Cut the rest of the turnips in dices, and strain the gravy when it is consumed to a pint. Wash the pan clean, and put the turnips and carrots with the gravy into it, and when the beef is tender, take it out. Skim off all the fat, and strain the gravy to the roots, and let it boil. Then set the beef on the middle of the dish, your carved sippets round, pour over your roots and gravy, and serve it up. A stewed rump of beef. Take a rump of beef and bone it. Put it into a broad stewing pot. Add to it a quart of water, shallot, a bundle of sweet herbs. Then cover it, and paste the cover close, so that no steam can get out, and let it stand in a moderate oven 8 hours. Boil 2 ox palates 6 hours of that time, an ounce of truffles and morels boiled tender. Cut the palates into small dices. Then take the beef out of the stewing pot, and skim off all the fat from the gravy, and set the beef on a soup dish, and strain the gravy into a hash pan. Add the palates, truffles, and morels, and boil them 1 minute. Toast bread and cut into dices, and put it into the dish. Pour in the soup and serve it up. By this receipt you may see what strength is in beef, and what it is able to do without hot spices. If the beef be good, the beef and soup will have one taste, and by this method any part of the beef may be done. To stew an ox head. Take a sharp knife and take off the flesh from the bones, and wash it through many warm waters. Season it with nutmeg, pepper, and salt, and put it into a stewing pot. Add to it a pint of stale beer, 2 heads of shallot, a bundle of sweet herbs. Then break the jawbones. Lay over the head. Cover it close, paste it, and set it in the oven all night, and when you take it out, if it is very tender, put the head into a pot and press it down with a cover. Strain the gravy into another pot, and so cut some of the head in slices. To warm in a hash pan with part of the gravy. Lay sippets round the dish and send it up. A made dish of lamb. Take a hind quarter of lamb, and cut off the leg, bone it, and cut some of the lean out of the leg. Take the fat of the loin and some of the lean, and shred very fine, and season it with nutmeg, pepper, and salt. Cut some green thyme and sweet marjoram small, and add to it grated bread and 2 eggs. Stuff the leg with this, and set it into an oven in an earthen pot. Then cut the loin into collops, and season it with nutmeg, mace, pepper, and salt. Set on the bones of the leg and loin to boil in a quart of water. Stick an onion with 3 cloves, and boil it with the sweet herbs. Then fry your collops a light brown. Put them in a hash pan, and when the gravy is consumed to a gill, strain it on the collops, and add a spoonful of pickled mushrooms. When the leg of lamb is enough, take it out. Pour off the gravy, skim off the fat, and put the gravy into the collops. Toss them up, pour them on the dish, and set the forced leg in the middle. Garnish the dish with green pickles, and serve it up. Stewed lamb's heads. Take 2 lamb's heads and split them. Take out the brains and tongues whole, and wash them very clean. Boil them in a stewpan till tender. Then take out the heads and cut a pound of veal into collops, and fry them in a stewpan on a slow fire with butter till they are brown. Pour in the broth the heads were boiled in. Then take 2 half heads, and with a knife cut each across by way of checkerwork, and rub them over with the yolk of an egg. Then strew over grated bread and parsley cut small, and set them on a tin pan before the fire. Baste them with butter and crisp them. Strain off the gravy, and wash the stewpan, and put the gravy and the 2 other halves into it. And while it is stewing, you may take out of the brains all the red strings that is on them. Dip them in egg, and strew over them some grated bread, and have some boiling fat, and fry them in. Then make up half a pound of savory forcemeat into balls, and fry them. Then add to the stewed head a spoonful of catsup, 4 artichoke bottoms cut in quarters, and thicken the sauce with flour and butter. Then set your broiled halves opposite to each other in the dish, the stewed halves the same way, and pour your sauce in, and lay the brains round the dish with the forcemeat balls, and serve it up. To stew a calf's head. Cleave the head, and take out the brains and eyes. Cut the skull off and the gristly part with the mouth, and put it into a stew pot. Season with mace, nutmeg, and pepper. Add to it a pint of water, 1/4 pound of butter, some shallot, and sweet herb. Cover it close. Paste the cover that no steam can get out, and 3 hours will do in a moderate oven. And in the meantime fry a pound of buttock beef cut into collops with butter brown. Then add to it 1 quart or 3 pints of water, and let it stew into a pint. Then strain it off, and clean your pan. Boil 1/2 of asparagus, and cut the tops in 1/2 inches long, and stew them in this gravy. Then dip the brains in egg, and boil them in the above manner. Fry some rashers of the flank part of the bacon. Take out the head and lay it on the dish. Skim off all the fat of the gravy the head was stewed in. Add as much as you need to the gravy and asparagus, and pour it over the head. Then lay the brains and rashers of bacon round the dish, and serve it up. A rolled breast of veal. Take a breast of veal and bone it. Lay it out its length on the table. Season it with nutmeg, pepper, and salt, green thyme, sweet marjoram, and parsley cut very small. Rub the yolk of egg over the inside of it. Then strew on the herbs, and lay forcemeat over the roll of veal the long way, and bind it with pack thread. Boil it in a stewpan in as much water as will cover it, and when it boils down, turn it, so that it may boil equally. When it is boiled thoroughly, pour off its gravy, and skim off all the fat. Clean wash your pan, and strain in the gravy. Add to it a gill of brown drawn gravy, with 2 veal sweetbreads broiled and cut each into 6 parts, some forcemeat balls, and a few mushrooms. Cut the breast in 3. Let each part stand upright. Lay carved sippets and lemon round the dish. Pour on the gravy, and serve it up. To dress sheep rumps. Take 8 sheep rumps and boil them tender, and take in the meantime 6 lambstones and as many suckles, and fry them brown. Then take some puff paste, and with a Jaeger iron, or what is commonly termed runners, cut this puff paste into strings as small as tape of 3 yards a penny. Then rub each rump with yolk of egg, and strew over some parsley cut small, and take the puff paste and lay on each rump in the long way, and cross them with the paste, so as to make them a small diamond figure, and set them in the oven, which is to be a sharp one. Then take 1/2 pint of gravy, fry 20 forcemeat balls, and toss up with the lambstones and suckles, adding a little thick-drawn butter. Toss all together and pour on the dish, and lay the rumps all round it. To dress hog's feet and ears. Take a gang of hog's feet and ears and boil them tender. Then cut off all the flesh from the bones of the feet, and cut it into slices as for a hash. Then season it with mace, cloves, nutmeg, salt, and pepper, and put it into a stewpan. Add to it a pint of brown veal gravy, and cut a calf's foot boiled tender into thin slices, and cut them in pieces, and add to the gravy and feet. Then cut one ear into thin slices, and add to it the other in the same form. Dip them in egg, and fried brown with fat. Then cut pickled cucumbers and lay round the dish. Pour in the stew, and lay the fried ear all over it, and serve it up. To ragout a beef's heart. Take a beef's heart, and cut out the inside of the meat, and lard it all over with bacon. Take a pound of beef suet with a quarter of a pound of meat you cut out of the heart. Shred it very fine, or beat it in a mortar, and grate into it the crumbs of a French roll. Season it with nutmeg, pepper, and salt. Cut small some cloves, thyme, parsley, and sweet marjoram. Break into it 2 eggs, and work it up with your hand, and stuff the heart with this forcemeat. Set it with the point of the heart up in a pot into an oven, and cover the pot. It will take 2 hours and a half baking, in which time cut the remainder of the meat you took out of the heart as thin as Scotch collops. Season them with nutmeg, pepper, and salt, and fry them in a stewpan with butter. Then add to them a quart of strong broth, and let it stew. Cut a neat's foot into thin pieces, and add to it. When there is gravy sufficient for sauce, and the heart in the oven the above time, take it out, set it in the middle of the dish, and pour over the ragout. Throw mushrooms over, and lay sippets round. To a la mode a calf's head. Your calf's head must have the skin on, the hair singed off with a hot poker, and after scraped clean with a knife. Then with a very sharp penknife take the head from the bone, the tongue taken out and boiled, the head larded all over with bacon, and filled with forcemeat made very stiff, and skewered in the full height and form it was in before, and put it into a long pot that will hold it with ease. Cover and set it into an oven 3 hours. Then take the tongue and cut it into thin slices, with 2 sweetbreads fried brown, and take 3 gills of beef gravy and put into a stewpan, into which put the sliced tongue and sweetbread, each cut into 8 pieces. Add to them some mushrooms, truffles, and morels, being first boiled tender in water. And when the gravy is consumed by gentle stewing on a slow fire, to as much as is sufficient for sauce, and the head enough, take it out. Garnish your dish with carved lemon and green pickles, pour on the stew, set the head in the middle, and serve it up. Lamb in blankets. Take a loin of lamb, and take the kidney and fat for forcemeat. Cut the flesh the long way from the chin, and make the collop half a quarter square. Beat it, and make 8 collops of the above size, and rub them over with yolk of egg. Season them with nutmeg and salt, and lay a thin layer of forcemeat, and roll it up. In the same manner do all the 8. Then break 6 ounces of butter into 3 pints of flour, very small. Work the butter in the flour, then beat up 2 eggs with a gill of fair water. Make a paste of this flour and butter, and roll out 8 sheets. Into each one roll up a roll of lamb, and tie a cloth over every one at each end, and have a stewpan of boiling water ready, into which put your lamb. Let them boil a full hour. For sauce, have gravy and butter. Take them out of the clothes, lay them round the dish, and pour over the sauce. Garnish with puff paste baked, and sippets. To ragout a shoulder of lamb. Take a well-grown forequarter of lamb, and cut off the shoulder close to the breast. With a knife, cut open the shoulder at the broad end. Take out the skull and shank bones. Take out the skull and shank bones, but take care not to break through on either side. Then stuff the places where the bones were taken out with forcemeat. Lay the shoulder on an earthen dish and set it in an oven an hour. Then take 6 lamb stones and 8 suckles. Split the stones. Season them with nutmeg, pepper, and salt. Fry them brown, and put them in a stewpan, adding a pint of gravy, some mushrooms, 1/4 of asparagus boiled tender. Cut off the green tops and add to the suckles and stones. When the shoulder is enough, take it out. Pour off all the fat. Put the gravy into the stewpan and let it boil with the ragout 1 minute. Then lay the shoulder in the middle of the dish and pour over it the ragout. Lay green pickles round the dish and serve it up. Minced beef collops. Cut 1.5 pounds out of the fillet, the part of the sirloin that lies next the chin under the suet. Mince this as small as minced veal. Take the marrow of 2 beef bones, cut small, and mix it with the minced collops. Then fry them in a pan over a slow fire. Season them with a little pepper and salt. Keep them stirring all the time. Lay toasted bread round the dish, and have no sauce but the marrow and themselves. Broiled beef collops. Cut steaks off the rump of bullock beef, 1/2 inch thick. Have a very clear fire and a clean hot grate iron. Lay 2 steaks on at a time, and keep them frequently turning. When the steaks are rather hard, they will be enough. Then lay them on a hot dish with scraped horseradish. If you observe the directions, the beefsteaks will discharge more gravy than needful for sauce. To make veal cutlets. Take a neck of fine veal, cut a rib to every cutlet, and flat them with the side of a bill knife. Then season them with mace, nutmeg, pepper, and salt. Rub each cutlet with the yolk of eggs, grate some bread, and roll each cutlet in it. Have some clean beef fat boiling hot in a hash pan on a stove, and fry them very quickly on it. For sauce, have some butter, gravy, and mushrooms. Pour it into a hot dish, lay the cutlets crisp and hot on the sauce, with lemon round the dish, and serve it up. To make a pillow. If you boil a knuckle of veal, take care your pot be very clean. Put no more water than will cover it, with a little white pepper, and 3 blades of mace. When the veal is enough boiled, strain off the broth into an earthen pot, and let it stand all night. Then skim off all the top, and take 2 quarts of this broth into a large saucepan. Set it on the fire, and when it boils, put in a large fowl. Be sure to skim it very well when it boils. Then add to it 3/4 pound of rice. Let it boil till the fowl is tender, and the rice seems thick. Then take up the fowl, and add a gill of thick cream to the rice. When it boils, cover the fowl with the rice, and pour the remainder into the dish. Lay boiled spinach round the dish edge, by way of garnishing. Turkey à la Royale. Take a turkey after it is well picked and singed, cut it down the back, and bone it, only leave the pinions on, and lard it all over with bacon. Make savory forcemeat, and fill the places where you took out the bones. Put into the body and crop 1.5 pounds of forcemeat. Sew the back up again with strong thread, leaving a piece of the thread to pull out the rest by, when it is ready to send to table. Skewer it in the same form as for roasting. Then set it on a deep earthen dish, and set it 2 hours in an oven. Cover it over with a sheet of cap paper well buttered. For sauce, take a gill of brown veal gravy, and take off the beards of 30 oysters, after you have plumped them. Then add a spoonful of pickled mushrooms. When you take out your turkey, skim all the fat off the gravy. That is in your dish it was baked in. Add this gravy to your sauce. Lay carved lemon and sippets round the dish. Pour on your sauce and set on your turkey. Remember to pull out the thread you sewed up the back. To a la mode a goose. After your goose is well picked and singed, cut it down the back and bone it in the above manner. Make 2 pounds of forcemeat and stuff it with. Sew up the back as aforesaid, and with a sharp knife make checkered work on the breast of it. Lay it on a flat-bottomed dish, and rub it all over with the yolk of egg. Then strew on grated bread and some butter. Set it 3 hours in the oven. For sauce, have a gill of gravy, and a gill of scalded gooseberries, which pour into the dish. Set the goose on the middle, and serve it up. To a la mode fowls. Take 3 young pouts and bone them. Put 1/4 pound of forcemeat into every fowl, but they are not to be cut down the backs. The bones are to be taken out at the neck end of them. When they are equally stuffed, put every fowl into a bladder and boil them an hour. Lay puff paste, sippets, and carved lemon round the dish. For sauce, have some white veal gravy and mushrooms, 6 yolks of eggs hard-boiled whole. Thicken it with flour and butter. Take out the fowls, set them on the dish, pour on the sauce, and serve them up. Chickens à la Royale. Take 4 large chickens, pick, singe, and clean them well. Cut them down the back, and bone them. Take 1/2 pound of marrow, 1/2 pound of beef suet, and 1/2 pound of the flesh of a fowl, with grated bread, eggs, and seasoning into a forcemeat. Stuff them, lard them with bacon, sew up their backs, and skewer them as if for roasting. Leave on their pinions. Lay them on a flat-bottomed earthen dish, and set them in an oven. Boil 1/2 of asparagus tops tender, and cut into 1/2-inch lengths. Take a gill of brown veal gravy, and boil the grass up in it. Thicken it with butter and flour. Then take out your chickens and set on the dish. Garnish with carved lemon and pickled kidney beans. A ragout of young ducks. Kill 3 young ducks, pick, singe, and bone them well. Stuff them with savory forcemeat. Let the feet be kept on, and take off their stockings. Put in each 3 small skewers at an equal distance from each other, to keep them as in the form for roasting. Then take a stewpan and set it on a slow stove, with 4 ounces of butter, and melt it. Then flour your ducks and fry them brown, adding a quart of veal broth, and let them stew with their livers, gizzards, and pinions, an onion, and sweet herbs. And when half of the gravy is consumed, take out the ducks, strain it, and skim off the fat. Boil a pint of green peas in water, and drain them through a hair's sieve. Then put them to the gravy that the ducks were stewed in, and keep it on the stove till it boils. Then put in the ducks. Squeeze in the juice of a lemon. Pour in 1/2 a gill of thick melted butter. Toss all well together, and serve them up. A jugged hare. Skin your hare and cut it into joints. Season it with mace, nutmeg, pepper, and salt. Clap it close in an earthen mug, and lay over it 1/2 pound of sweet butter. Then cover it close, paste it down, and set it 3 hours in an oven. Take its liver with 1/4 pound of beef suet shred very fine, or beat in a marble mortar. Add shallot, green thyme, parsley, sweet marjoram, nutmeg, pepper, and salt. The crumb of a halfpenny roll steeped in milk. Then squeeze out the milk, and take the bread and an egg, mix all together. Flour a piece of linen cloth, and put this pudding into it. Tie it up, and boil it. Then take the head of the hare, and rub it over with the yolk of egg. Baste it with melted butter. Then grate bread over it, and set it into the oven. When the hare is enough, that is, when it has been in the oven the above time, take it out, and pour from it all the gravy. Add to it half a gill of beef gravy, and thicken it with butter and flour. Then lay sippets round the dish, into which lay the hare. Pour over the gravy. Cut the pudding in slices, and lay all over. Set the head in the middle, and send it up to table. Coxcombed Tripes. To coxcombed tripes, you must have an iron made in the shape of a coxcomb, and take the lean part of the finest tripe you can get. Cut out a pound of coxcombs, and have 3 gills of beef gravy, into which put your coxcombs, and let them stew. Then cut the thick part of a bullock's foot into thin dices, and add to them. Cut a piece of the double round, and dip it in batter. Cut some of the thin tripe, in the shape of half a crown, and 10 of these fry brown. Then toss up the coxcombs with a little vinegar and mustard, and pour them on the dish. Lay the double tripe in the middle, and the other round it. Garnish with pickled onions and barberry berries. To fry tripes. Wash and dry your tripes well. Make a batter of an egg, a spoonful of flour, and 3 spoonfuls of milk beat very smooth. Then dip in your tripe, and have ready some fine beef fat boiling, and fry the tripe of fine crisp light brown. For sauce, melted butter and mustard. To fry neat's feet. Take all the bones out of the bullock's feet, and cut in pieces the length of your finger, and the breadth of 2. Make the aforesaid batter, and dip each piece, frying it. Make the aforesaid batter, and dip each piece, frying it in fat as for tripes. For sauce, mustard, melted butter, and vinegar. Cased veal cutlets. Cut out of a leg of veal 12 thin collops. Let them be a direct square. Season them with mace, nutmeg, and salt. Rub them over with yolk of egg. Grate some bread and throw on each side of them, and make for each a sheet of puff paste no thicker than wafer. Paper close round the sides of the cutlets, and set them in a tin pan into a hot oven. If the oven is equally hot, top and bottom, they will be done in 10 minutes, and will be savory and crisp, and is sent up without sauce. This way is very much liked by ladies and gentlemen of weak constitutions and tender stomachs. To dress a calf's head. Take out the eyes and split the head. Take out the brains, wash the head in warm water, and afterwards in cold water, till it is very clean, and then boil it. When it is enough, take it up and cut it across with a sharp knife, till you make dice work of each side. Then rub it over with yolk of egg. Throw on some grated bread, and set it in a tin pan before the fire. But if you have an oven, rather use it. Only you must baste with melted butter before you put it in, and let it stand till it is brown. For sauce, boil the brains and mix with melted butter, and a spoonful of vinegar. Set on the 2 halves upright in the dish. Lay broiled rashers of bacon all over the skull, and round the dish. Then serve it up. To roast a pig like lamb. Take a fat pig and kill it. Take off the hair and skin it. Cut it into quarters and draw it with parsley. Take the skin and head of it. Take the bones out of 2 rabbits. Rub the inside of the pig with yolk of eggs, and join the rabbits close to the skin of the pig. take the bottom of a long French roll, take out the crumb, put a clean rag within the roll to keep it up, fix the roll to the pig's head and lay it in the inside of the pig. Then turn them over into a tin pan and set it into an oven, with flour drudged over it. When it is near done, take it out, and wipe off the flour with a clean wing of a goose. Rub it all over with clean feathers dipped in melted butter. Throw salt over it, and set it into an oven till it is enough. Then have in readiness a gill of gravy, with a little boiled sage in it. Draw the pig, and with a clean wing dust all the salt off it. Take the cloth out of the roll, send it up whole to the table. Let the roll stay within it, and pour the gravy into the dish. So you have 4/4 of a pig and a whole one, out of one pig, by the art of cookery and a little help. A made dish of sheep heads and tongues. Take 2 good wether heads and 8 tongues. Wash your heads well after you have split them, and take their eyes out. Put them into a pot with just as much water as will cover them, and take care of all the brains. Wash all the tongues, and boil them with the heads. Take a pound of veal and cut into thin collops. Fry them brown on a slow stove in a hash pan. Then take up the heads and tongues. Strain 3 pints of the broth into the hash pan. Let it boil. Then take the 8 tongues, lard and blanch them with bacon. Pick the flesh clean from the bone of the heads, and take great care to keep it whole, that is, not to break through and disfigure the half face of the sheep. Then season the heads with mace, nutmeg, pepper, and herbs cut very small. Roll out a sheet of puff paste as thin as wafer paste. Cover each side of the sheep's face with it, and set it in the oven. Take out the larded tongues and strain off the gravy. Wash your pan clean, put in your gravy and tongues. Add to them some mushrooms, truffles, and morels stewed tender, 20 forcemeat balls. Dip the brains in egg and fry them in hot fat. Toss all up. Lay the tongues round the dish, pour on the gravy, balls, and mushrooms. Set the heads in the middle, the brains all over, so serve it up. This is a head dish for a first course. A made dish of sweetbreads. Take 4 sweetbreads and season with nutmeg and salt. One of the largest rub over with yolk of egg, grate bread, roll it on, and broil it before the fire. Season the other 3 and fry them brown with butter. Take a pint of brown veal gravy. Cut the 3 sweetbreads into dices, and put them into the gravy to stew. Boil 8 eggs hard, and take out the yolks whole. When the gravy is consumed to what is sufficient for sauce, add to it a little melted butter, and toss it up. Lay sippets and carved lemon round the dish. Pour on the stewed sweetbreads. Lay the broiled one in the middle, with yolk of eggs all over, and serve it up. A boiled turkey. Boil your turkey in oat meat and water. Take celery and cut in pieces no larger than the breadth of your finger. Take a pint of white gravy of veal, and put to it a pint of cut celery. Let it stew till the celery is tender, then grate in a little nutmeg and salt. Add to it some plain melted butter, and when the turkey is enough, take it up and set it on a dish. Pour over your sauce, and garnish your dish with carved lemon. A boiled turkey with rice. Skewer your turkey for boiling, and take 1/4 pound of beef suet, and the crumbs of a halfpenny roll grated, a little nutmeg and egg worked up together with your hand. Put it into the turkey's crop, sew it up, and put it into a pot and boil it. Then take 1/2 pound of rice and boil tender in water, and when it begins to thicken, take 1/4 pound of butter and toss it up with, adding a little nutmeg and salt to it. Set the turkey on a dish and smother it with rice. Pour the remainder on the dish and serve it up. A boiled turkey and oyster sauce. Put your turkey up for boiling, and grate the crumb of a penny French roll. Take a slice of sweet butter and work up in the crumbs. Grate nutmeg and salt. Add an egg, and stuff a little thyme, parsley, and sweet marjoram, cut very small. Work all well together, and stuff the crop of the turkey. Sew it up, and boil it. Then take 1/2 of good fresh oysters, and put them a minute or two on the fire to plump, and take one by one out of their liquor. Then melt 1/4 pound of butter, into which put your oysters with a little of their liquor. Add a little white wine, nutmeg, a very little bread boiled in water. Toss up all very well. Take up your turkey and lay it in your dish, and pour on your oyster sauce. Lay sippets round dish and carved lemon. So send it up. A boiled fowl smothered with onions. Put up your fowl for boiling, and let it be well singed. After, rub it very well, wash and dry it. Then dust a little flour over it, boil it in soft water. It will be white if you do not overboil it. And boil 6 large onions very soft. Beat them to pulp, and mix them with melted butter. Lay the fowl on a dish, and pour over the onion sauce. The same sauce is made for boiled rabbits. To make a venison pasty. Bone your venison and season it with black pepper and salt. Put it in a pot and cover it close. Set it 2 hours in an oven. Put into the pot over it 1/2 pound of sweet butter, and according to the size of your pasty pan, make a quantity of paste. Break 2 pounds of butter into 4 pounds of flour. Mix it with cold water to a paste. Cut a pound of butter into slices and lay over the paste. Drudge flour over the butter and roll it out 3 times, drudging flour each time. Cover the inside and edges of the pan. Take the venison out of the oven and put into it, and if it wants fat, take the fat laps of a good shoulder of wether mutton and lay over it. Then lay over all a sheet of paste, and cut out leaves and flowers on the top of the pasty. 2 hours will bake it. Have a pint of rich gravy in readiness to pour into the pasty as soon as it comes out of the oven, and send it up. A mutton pasty. Take a hind quarter of little Scotch mutton, bone and skin it, and bake it in an oven in the aforesaid manner. Put it in a pasty pan, as is directed, and give it the same time to bake in. It will not be much inferior to a venison pasty. A Florentine. Take 2 bullock's feet and take out all the bones. Shred the meat very small, as if for minced pies. Blanch a pound of Jordan almonds, and mince small with the feet. Stone 1/2 pound of raisins, and cut small. 1.5 pounds of currants well picked and washed, 1 pound of apples cut small, and 1/2 pound of sugar. Season with mace, cinnamon, and nutmeg. Make pasty paste, and lay round the dish edge, and put in your minced meat, mixing it well. Then cover it with a sheet of paste, and cut out your Florentine. Bake it 2 hours, and serve it up. A sweet veal pie. Cut a loin of veal into chops, and season it with nutmeg, Jamaica pepper, and salt. Take 1/2 pound of currants, 1/2 pound of raisins, stoned, and 1/4 pound of almonds. Take part of the kidney fat, shred it small or beat in a mortar, and some grated bread. Season it with nutmeg and salt, add currants and an egg, and mix all up into round balls. Then lay a layer of veal, and upon that strew fruit and almonds. Then another layer of veal, and upon that strew fruit and almonds. Lay over that the forcemeat balls. Cover up your pie, and bake it 1.5 hours in an oven. Make a caudle of a gill of cream, with a little butter, 1/2 gill of white wine, and a little sugar. You may make a sweet lamb pie after the same manner. A mutton pie. Take a neck of mutton and cut into chops. Scrape some small potatoes and season your chops with pepper and salt, and lay a rib of paste round a soup dish. Then lay a layer of mutton, and on that potatoes. Cover the potatoes with the rest of the mutton, and fill up the dish with the rest of the potatoes. Put a pint of water into the dish and cover it up. It will take 2 hours baking. A hare pie. Bone a hare, and make a pudding for her of the liver, 1/4 pound of beef suet, some grated bread, and an egg. Season with nutmeg, pepper, and salt. Cut thyme, parsley, sweet marjoram, very small, and a little shallot. Mix these with the pudding, and put it into the hare. Raise a standing crust for it, and model your paste into the shape of a hare. Set the hare on her belly as she is in her natural seat. When you take off the skin, skin the ears, and set her with her head down, and her ears between her shoulders. If you are an expert pastry cook, make the figure of the hare on the lid of the pie. Let her have 2 hours and a half baking. Pour into your pie, as soon as taken out of the oven, a pint of veal gravy that spices have been boiled in, and send it up. An alio of small birds. Take 2 dozen of small birds and pick clean. Make a forcemeat of the marrow of a beef bone and the breast of a fowl. Beat in a marble mortar, or shred very fine on a board. Season with mace, nutmeg, and salt. Take the crumbs of a halfpenny roll and soak in cream, and an egg, mix all well together. Boil 2 beef palates tender, and cut into small squares. Then season the birds and palates with nutmeg and salt. Lay the birds into a raised crust not above 3 inches high. Lay the palates between the birds, and spread the forcemeat all over. An hour will bake it. Have in readiness 1/2 pint of veal gravy, and pour into it as soon as it is taken out of the oven. A chicken pie. Take 5 young chickens and skin them very clean. Grate a nutmeg and mix with salt. Take 1/4 pound of butter and mix with the nutmeg and salt, and divide it into 5 parts. Take out the breastbones of the chickens, put them up as for boiling, cut off their legs, put into each chicken a part of the butter. Lay them into a dish or a baker that just holds them. Turn their breasts down. Lay puff paste round the sides of the dish or baker. Cover it with puff paste and bake it in an oven an hour. Then boil 1/2 of asparagus in water. Cut them into 1/2-inch lengths. Have some veal gravy ready, and stew them in the gravy 1/4 of an hour. Then take the lid off the chickens, and turn the breasts up, and pour on the stewed asparagus and gravy. A beefsteak pie. Take 2 pounds of beef out of the fortune that lies next to the ribby end. Cut it very thin. Season with mace, nutmeg, pepper, and salt. Boil 3 ox palates tender and cut small. Make pasty paste, roll it out, and lay a paste round the rim of the dish. Lay in your beefsteaks, and the palates between the steaks. Add 3 slices of butter, and cover them with the paste. Bake the pie 2 hours, and when you take it out of the oven, pour into it 1/2 pint of strong broth, and send it up. A mutton steak pie. Cut out the part of a leg of mutton where the Pope's eye is, and cut it round, so that the Pope's eye may appear in the middle. The mutton round it as a border, and cut the slices thin. Take 1 pound of very small kidney potatoes and scrape them. Season the mutton with pepper and salt. Lay a layer of mutton and a layer of potatoes till your dish is full. Cover it with thin slices of butter, and make the aforesaid paste in the above manner. Bake it, and when it is enough, pour in a pint of mutton gravy, and send it up. A duck pie. Bone a couple of ducks, and after you have picked and singed them well, wash them clean and dry them with clean towels. Take a pound of white force meat made of the breasts of fowls, beef suet, and grated bread. Season it with nutmeg, pepper, and salt, thyme, sweet marjoram, and parsley cut small, and work it up with an egg. Rub the inside of the ducks with the yolk of an egg, and lay a thin layer of forcemeat upon it. Put the ducks in their natural form, and raise an oval crust, into which lay the ducks, and lid the pie. Bake it 2 hours, in which time make some brown gravy. Add to it a veal suckle cut into 8 parts, 2 artichoke bottoms cut into quarters. When the pie is baked, cut up the lid, boil up the gravy, and pour over the ducks, and send it up. A ham pie. Take a 2-year-old well-cured ham, and lay it in cold water all night, or 12 hours. Then take it out, take off all the skin, cut off the rusty part of the underside of it with a sharp knife. Then put it into a long earthen pot that will just hold it, and lay it with the fat side uppermost. Then put to it 2 bottles of rough cider, cover it close, and set it in an oven an hour and a half. Raise a crust in the shape of the ham, as thick as the walls of a goose pie, into which put the whole ham. Lid the pie, and set it in an oven 2 hours and a half, in which time make a ragout of strong gravy, 2 veal suckles broiled and cut in dices, 6 artichoke bottoms cut in quarters, forcemeat balls, truffles and morels boiled tender, and mushrooms, and toss up the ragout. When you take out the pie, cut up the lid, and pour it over the ham. Ornament it with various shapes of paste cut out, as wild beasts and flowers. Send it up without the lid. A Christmas goose pie. Take a stone of flour, and boil up 4 pounds of butter in 3 quarts of water, and mix the flour with the butter first. Then take as much of the water as will mix the other part of the flour. Work it well together, and when it is cool, raise an oval crust. Then take a fat goose and a turkey, pick off all the feathers, clean and cut up their backs, and take out all their bones. Take a bullock's tongue, blanch and split it. Season the turkey and goose with nutmeg, Jamaica, and black pepper. Lay the turkey on the bottom of the pie, and upon it the split tongue. Cover it with the goose. Lay over the goose all the seam, that is the fat you took out of her, and make a thick lid. Cover the pie, and paper it well. It will take 6 hours baking. When you take it out of the oven, pour into it a pound of melted butter, and set upon a cold stone till it is cool. An ox cheek pie. Bone an ox cheek and wash it in many waters. Dry it with a clean cloth, and season it with black and Jamaica pepper and salt. Put it into a pot, and put a gill of claret to it. Cover it close, pasting it so that no steam can get out, and set it 4 hours in an oven. Then make pasty paste, and lay a sheet round the edge of a soup dish. Take the ox cheek whole out of the pot it was baked in. Take the ox cheek whole out of the pot it was baked in, and put it into the soup dish. Add to it 1/4 pound of butter. Lay on it a thick sheet of paste, and bake it 2 hours in an oven. Make a pint of strong beef gravy, and a gill of the liquor the head was first stewed in. And when it is taken out of the oven, pour this into the pie. Shake it well, and send it up. This eats very much like venison, and has been taken for venison by tolerable judges. A sweet mutton pie. Take a loin of mutton, and take off the skin. Cut the thin flank part off it, and cut the chin part into chops. Season it with Jamaica and black pepper and nutmeg. Take 1/2 pound of currants, and 1/2 pound of raisins. Stone the raisins, pick the currants, wash them and dry them with a cloth. Take 1/4 pound of sugar. Then lay a layer of mutton, upon which lay fruit and sugar. Cover the fruit with mutton, and throw over the remainder of the fruit and sugar. Then put in a pint of water. So cover the dish with paste, and bake it 2 hours. A savory turbot pie. Take 2 pounds of turbot, and cut 1.5 pounds into thick slices. Season it with nutmeg, pepper, and salt. Make a raised crust very thin, lay in your turbot, lay on it 1/4 pound of butter, lid the pie, and bake it 1.5 hours, in which time cut the other half into thin slices, and fry brown with butter in a little hash pan, and add to it a quart of water. Then take 1/2 of oysters, heat them in a saucepan, take off their beards, and when the fish gravy is 2 parts consumed, strain it into a saucepan. Add to it the oysters with a little of the liquor, a spoonful of catsup, and a spoonful of walnut liquor. Work a piece of butter and flour, and thicken it up. Set it on the fire till it boils, and toss it up. When the pie has been the above time in the oven, take it out, cut up the lid, pour in the oysters and gravy, lay on the lid, and serve it up. A sweet turbot pie. Take 1.5 pounds of turbot, and cut into thin slices. Season with nutmeg, mace, and salt. Take 1/2 pound of currants, wash and pick them, and 1/2 pound of raisins, stone them. Make a puff paste crust. Lay paste round the sides of the dish. Lay a layer of turbot, and cover it with fruit. Then cover the fruit with turbot, and on it strew the remainder of the fruit, and lay over all 1/4 pound of butter. Then fix on the lid. 1 hour will bake it. And when it comes out of the oven, make a caudle of melted butter and sugar, and 1/2 gill of white wine, and pour into the pie after you have cut up the lid, and send it up. A salmon pie. Take a jewel of salmon, and cut into thin slices. Take 1/2 gill of verjuice, and rub over each piece of salmon. Season it with Jamaica and black pepper, nutmeg, and salt. Roll each piece, and set round the bottom of a raised crust. Lay on the lid, and bake it 2 hours. Boil the bones of the salmon, and fry 4 slices in butter. And when it is fried brown, pour in the fish broth, and boil it with the fried salmon till it is something strong. Then take a gill of gooseberries, pick and scald them in water, add them to the gravy and some melted butter, and when you have taken the pie out of the oven, cut the lid up and take it off, and pour over all the salmon, the gravy, and gooseberries. Cut the lid in 8 parts, and set round the inside of the pie, and send to table. A eel pie. Take 8 large eels, skin and wash them clean. Open and split them down the middle, and take out their backbones. Season them with nutmeg, pepper, and salt, and put them into an earthen pot. Put 3 spoonfuls of butter over them, cover them close, and set them in an oven for 4 hours, in which time the bones of the eels will dissolve. Then lay a sheet of puff paste over all the dish that will just hold them, and put them close. Observe to roll them as if for colouring, before you put them in the pot. Then lay a very thin cover of paste over them, and let them bake 1 hour, in which time set their heads and backbones on the fire with a pint of water, and let it boil to a gill. Then add to it a spoonful of catsup, thicken it with butter and flour, take out the pie, pour in the gravy, and set it upon the table. An oyster pie. Take a rock codling and cut out the backbone. Lay it in an earthen pan. Pour upon it a pint of white wine or gooseberry vinegar, and let it lie 1 hour. Then make a pasty paste crust, and lay it very thin round the dish. Cut the skin off the fish, take out all its bones, and cut it in pieces no larger than your finger. Then season it with mace, nutmeg, pepper, and salt, and lay it into your dish, with 1/4 pound of butter over it and a thin paste, and bake it an hour in an oven. Then take a haddock and cut down the middle, after it is cleaned. Fry it brown in butter, with the tail of the codling, in a hash pan, adding to it a quart of water and the bones of the codling. When it is consumed to little above a gill, strain through a hair sieve. Take 100 of oysters, scald them, take off all their beards, and put them into a saucepan with the fish gravy, and let them just boil. Then take the pie out of the oven, cut up the lid and take it off. Pour all the oysters over the pie, cut the lid into 6 pieces, set them round, and send it up. An apple custard pie. Lay a puff paste crust all over a baker. Peel and core as many apples as will fill it. Put in sugar and cover it, and bake it an hour and a half in an oven. Then take a pint of cream and boil it on the fire with a stick of cinnamon, and set it to cool. Then beat the yolks of 6 eggs very well, mix with the cream, and sweeten to your taste. Take out the pie, cut up the lid and take it off, and with the back of your spoon put down the apples. Make it smooth. Then pour over the cream and yolks of eggs, and set it in 5 minutes. Then take it out, cut the lid into sippets, and set round the custard. Send it up to the table cold. In all apple pies, be sure to put in lemon skin cut small. A cherry pie. Lay puff paste all over a baker. Fill it with stoned cherries, and sweeten it to your taste. Then roll out the remainder of your paste, and cut it in lengths to reach over the pie. Make each piece into 1/2-inch breadths, and lay them cross and cross, to make them into diamonds. Then set it into the oven. Take great care to bake it beautiful, and send it up cold. Nota bene. All sweetmeat pies are to have open lids, such as damsons, plums, etc., and to be sent up cold, or red, white, or black currants in the same manner. Likewise, rasps and strawberries. A French bean pie. Take a quart of French blanched beans. Lay puff paste over a dish edge. Boil 8 eggs hard. Take out their yolks whole, and lay all over the top of the beans, likewise 1/4 pound of sugar and the same of butter. Cover it up and bake it an hour. Then take a gill of melted butter and 1/2 gill of Rhenish, sweeten it to your taste, and pour it on. To dress a cod's head. Cut 3 inches of the cod's shoulder towards the head. Then rub the head all over with very strong vinegar, and cover it with salt an hour before you put it in to boil, and have hard water to boil it. Let the fire be very good, for it must boil very fast an hour. Skin 8 whitings and dip in batter, and fry in clarified butter. Drain the head over the water it was boiled in, and while it is draining, take off all the black skin. When the fish is boiling, break a lobster and take out all the meat. Cut it small, and boil it up in melted butter. Grate on some nutmeg and catsup. Add catsup, red wine of each a spoonful. Cut some of the liver and dip into batter. Fry it. Then take the long, small bones out of the jaw fins of the head, and stick on each end mushrooms, oysters, barberry berry. Set the head on a dish, and let it be hot. Lay your forced fish round it, and the liver all over the head. Stick the jaw bones between. Lay fried parsley and horseradish and barberry berries round the dish edge, and send it to the table. To dress the cod's tail. The thick end of the cod cut into slices an inch thick, and lay them into an earthen dish. Pour over them a gill of beer vinegar, and strew over some salt. Then take out the bones, and cut the remainder into thin slices for frying. Season with nutmeg, pepper, and salt. Then set on some water in a broad hash pan, and when it boils, put in the cod that is in the vinegar. Have no more water than will cover it, and put in the vinegar that it lay in. Then dip the cod cut for frying in batter, made of half a gill of stale beer and flour. If the fish can be for those that abstain from flesh, fry it in clarified butter, if not, clean fat. Then take 1/2 of oysters and just plumb them. Melt 1/2 pound of butter and put in the oysters, with a little of their pickle, some catsup, and a spoonful of mushrooms. If you have a double dish, fill it with hot water. Then take out your boiled fish with a fish slice and lay on the hot dish. Pour over the oyster sauce and lay the fried fish all over. Lay sippets, barberry berries, and horseradish round, and send it up. A ragout of ling. Take a side of a ling and cut 1/4 off the broad end, and cut a thick slice off it, and a piece of its liver, and boil in vinegar and water. Then take it up and beat it in a marble mortar. Add to it the crumb of a French roll. Season it with nutmeg, pepper, and salt, thyme, sweet marjoram, and parsley cut small, a glass of Rhenish, and an egg. Mix all well together with a piece of butter. Take the fish and cut off that part next the back, to make it of the same thickness of the thinner side, and take out the small bones. Season with nutmeg, pepper, and salt. Beat 2 yolks of eggs in a spoonful of verjuice, and rub all over the fish. Then lay a thin layer of the forced fish on the ling, and roll it tight up. Roll a broad tape round, butter an earthen dish and lay it in, and set it into an oven an hour. Then fry a pound of the ling, cut thin into collops, brown in butter, and set on the bones and fins to boil in a saucepan with an anchovy, horseradish, shallot, thyme, and marjoram. When the strength is boiled out, strain out the broth into the hash pan to the fried ling, and when it is strong, strain it through a hair sieve. Add to it 1/2 gill of pickled mushrooms, a spoonful of cockles, 20 fresh oysters. Make 20 balls of the forced fish, and fry in clarified butter. Then take the fish out of the oven, pour off all its gravy, strain off the fat, and add to the ragout. Thicken it with butter sauce. Set the collar in the middle of the dish, and pour over the ragout. Lay sippets and fried parsley round the dish, and serve it up. Scotch collops of ling. Cut 2 pounds of ling into collops, and season with Jamaica and black pepper, nutmeg, and salt. Boil 1/4 pound of ling, and take the crumb of a French roll with a slice of very sweet butter and mix with it. Add thyme, sweet marjoram, and parsley cut small, nutmeg, pepper, and salt. Work it all up together with an egg, and make them up into little balls. Then make a batter of 1/2 gill of verjuice, the yolks of 2 eggs, and a little flour. Dip each collop into the batter, and fry them brown in clarified butter. Take them into a dish, set them before the fire, and fry the balls and lay by them. Fry a pound of the fish cut into thin slices in butter. Put to it a pint of fish broth, an anchovy, some catsup, and a spoonful of claret. When 1/2 is consumed, strain it off, and put it into a saucepan, with a little butter and flour, and boil it up. Add to it some mushrooms and pickled cockles. Lay the fried collops on a clean hot dish, the balls all over them, and pour over the sauce. Lay sippets round the dish, and garnish with syrupped horseradish and barberry berries. So serve it up. A brown fricassee of ling. Cut out of the thick part of the ling 1.5 pounds, and cut into collops as long as your finger, as broad as 2, and the thickness of a beefsteak. Season them with mace, cloves, pepper, and salt. Make a batter of 2 spoonfuls of white wine vinegar, 2 yolks of eggs, and a little flour. Dip the fish in the batter, and fry it in clarified butter. Cut the liver after it is boiled and cold into thin slices, and make a batter of vinegar and flour, and dip each slice of liver in it, and fry it crisp. Then have some strong fish gravy, made as before directed, and thicken it with butter and flour. Add to the gravy half a gill of pickled mushrooms, some catsup and claret, and boil it up. Lay the fried fish in the middle of the dish, the fried liver round by way of sippets. Fried parsley round the dish edge, and some barberry berries. Pour over the sauce, and send it up hot. A boiled codling. Take a codling when it is in perfection, which you may know by the ribby shades on the sides, and the crease down the back of the head, or circle more properly termed. Rip it up and take out its liver. Turn the tail of the fish to its head, and lay salt all over it an hour. Have a kettle or pan a-boiling that will just hold it, so as to cover it with water. Take half of the liver and shred it very small. Boil it in a saucepan in a pint of water with an anchovy. Let it boil to a gill. Strain it through a hair sieve into a saucepan, and thicken it with butter and flour. Take up your fish, drain it, take off the skin, and set it on a dish. Garnish with green parsley and horseradish, and send up your sauce in a basin. A boiled ling. Take a share of ling, and boil it with the liver, and put in some salt with it into the pan. Take 2 crabs, beat the claws, and take out all the meat. Take some of the body of the crab, melt half a pound of butter, add to it the meat of the crabs, a little black pepper, and boil it. Take up the fish, laying it on a hot dish, and send it up with the skin on. Slice the liver and lay over it. Garnish with green parsley, horseradish, and barberry berries. To boil a cod. If you can get a cod hot out of the sea, cut off the head and shoulders, and cut the cod into inch-thick slices, as much as will serve your family. 5 slices will make a substantial dish. Cut it as above directed. Put it into an earthen pot. Pour upon it a pint of strong beer vinegar, and let it lie an hour in the vinegar, turning it over several times. Then have a pan of water boiling on a very good fire. Put in a handful of salt, and wash the fish out of the vinegar. Pour it into the boiling water and salt, and let it boil fast half an hour. For sauce, take 30 oysters, and half a pound of sweet butter. Melt it as sauce. When the oysters are clean washed, put them into the butter and boil them up. Add a spoonful of catsup and spoonful of mushrooms. Take up the fish and drain it over a hot stove or chafing dish of hot cinders a minute or 2. Lay it on a hot water dish if you have one. Otherwise, let the dish you lay it on be very hot, and pour over your sauce. Garnish with horseradish, parsley, and barberry berries. To boil haddocks. Take haddocks when they are in perfection. Take out their livers and roes, and boil the livers with the haddocks. 4 will make a very good dish. Take off their heads and skin them. Cut them through the middle. Boil them and broil their roes before the fire very well. They will take as much broiling as the fish will boiling, that is, half an hour. Take them up and place the tails in the middle of the dish. Lay the other halves between them, and lay their livers and roes all round the dish. Garnish with green parsley and barberry berries, and have for sauce very sweet butter, plain melted. To boil whitings. Wash the whitings clean, and with a sharp knife cut off all their fins, skin them, take out their eyes, and put each tail through the bone of the head. Boil as many as will do for your purpose, for a head dish or a side dish. Garnish with green parsley. Lay the fish on a warm dish, and have plain melted butter for sauce. To fry whitings. Either put them up as above directed, or cut off their heads, rub them over with yolks of eggs, drudge flour over them, and fry them in hot melted fat or clarified butter. Fry parsley, set up their tails in the middle of the dish, and lay the fried parsley round for garnishing. Lay some barberry berries over the fish. To fry flounders. Take flounders of any sort. To fry flounders. Take flounders or any sort of flatfish that is not over thick for frying. Cut them on the side of their belly and gut them. Wash them clean and dry them with a coarse cloth. Take a sharp case knife and cut them cross and cross by way of diamond cut. Then rub them over with yolks of eggs. Flour them and fry them as above directed. Garnish with fried parsley and plain butter sauce. Set up their tails in the middle of the dish and send them up to table. To stew soles. Take a pair of soles and skin them. Fry them brown in butter. Take a pint of strong fish gravy and put to them. Add a little mace, nutmeg, and salt. Let them stew over a slow stove till there is no more gravy than what is sufficient for sauce. Then add some pickled mushrooms and a little melted butter. Lay sippets round the dish. Then lay in your soles. Pour over your sauce. Garnish with carved lemon and send them up. To crimp skate. Take a maiden skate and cut off all the bony part. Cut the 2 wings into pieces an inch broad, and the length of the skate. Wash it clean in water, and let it lie in vinegar and salt an hour. Then have some pump water boiling on a hot stove in a broad hash pan, into which put your skate and a little of the vinegar, and let it boil 6 minutes. Then take it up into a hot dish, lay green parsley round it, and have plain melted butter sauce, and send it up. To boil skate. Take the broad wing of a maiden skate and wash clean. Hang it up on a crook in the air 1 day. Then boil it in pump water with salt in it 8 minutes. Take it up and take off the skin, and lay the 2 wings on a dish whole. Garnish with green parsley and horseradish. Have some plain butter sauce. To stew butts. Take 4 butts and wash them clean. Set them on a stove in a broad hash pan, cover them with water, and put to them some blades of mace and white pepper tied up in a muslin rag. Then take 30 fresh oysters, scald and beard them. When the fish is stewed, and the gravy consumed to no more than what is required for sauce, thicken it with butter and flour. Then put in your oysters, and add a spoonful of Rhenish. Lay sippets and barberry berries round the dish. Set your fish tails in the middle, and send it up to the table. To boil mackerel. Cut your mackerel in 2, and if you have 3, make a star. Set the heads in the middle, and a tail between each head. Boil them in a broad hash pan on a stove in salt water. Boil them in a broad hash pan on a stove in salt and water. Have herbs, parsley, and fennel, boiled tender, and cut very small, and mix up with plain butter melted. Garnish with green parsley. To ragout salmon. Take a 4 jowl of salmon, cut off the head. Take out the bone and rub it all over with verjuice or white wine vinegar. Then boil the head and take the fish off it. Grate bread with a slice of sweet butter, an egg, green thyme, parsley, sweet marjoram cut very small, nutmeg, pepper, and salt mixed all together, and make forcemeat. Season your salmon with nutmeg, pepper, and salt, and put over the inside of it the yolk of an egg. Then lay on your forcemeat, roll it up, put it into a pot, and set it into an oven an hour and a half. If it is not a fast day, have half a pint of good gravy, a 1/4 pound of sweet butter, made for sauce, and a gill of scalded gooseberries. Lay sippets round the dish, and lay on your salmon. Garnish with carved lemon. Scotch collops of salmon. Cut out of a 4 jowl of salmon collops. Rub each collop with verjuice, and season with Jamaica and black pepper, nutmeg, and salt. Make forcemeat and put it into a little round basin, and bake it in an oven. Then flour and fry the collops. Fry a codling cut into pieces. Brown in butter. Add a pint of fish broth. When it is strong enough, strain it off, and thicken it with butter and flour. Add to it a gill of scalded gooseberries. Set the forcemeat in the middle, lay the collops round it, pour the sauce all over it, and lay crisp parsley round. Olives of salmon. Take a hind jowl of salmon, skin and split it, cut the first 2 half a 1/4 in length, and the breadth of the fish, and make the other end to the same size. Boil what cuttings you leave for forcemeat, in the same manner as is before directed. Rub yolks of eggs all round each piece of fish, and season it with nutmeg, pepper, and salt. Spread over each collop a thin layer of forcemeat. Roll them up tight. Lay them on a little long tin pan close, and set them in an oven half an hour. For sauce, boil the fish bones, with an anchovy and horseradish, and strain it off. Then add 2 spoonfuls of catsup, half a gill of pickled mushrooms. Thicken it with butter and flour, and lay the olives. Garnish with crisp parsley.